Okay, a very good morning. Today we'll be having our lecture class on periodontal surgery. The part which we will be dealing here with osseous reconstructive surgery. So it's divided into two parts. Part 1, we will be speaking more about the bone graft. So at the end of this class, we would like you to classify the materials used in the reconstructive surgery, explain the role of different techniques in reconstructive surgery, apply the knowledge during the treatment plan using advanced surgical procedures, and outline the effectiveness of osseous reconstructive surgeries. So the contents of this class would include introduction, aim of regenerative periodontal therapy, classification of regenerative therapy and bone grafts. So all the four bone grafts we will be dealing with, patient preparation and surgical procedure, how are we going to do, and then we'll finish it with summary and conclusion. So to start with, we have seen it in the last class itself that once we do some pattern of treatment in relation to the area of root where the bone loss has occurred, there would be some change from these cells which are there surrounding. So supposing if the epithelial cells comes into the area of the healing pattern, then it would result in something called as a long junctional epithelium. If the connective tissue cells come into the healing area, then it would result in connective tissue adhesion and root resorption. If the bone cells come into the healed area, then it results in root resorption and ankylosis. So all these three is a part of just a repair process, and just reattachment would occur here. But only if the PDL cells are going to come into the place of your healed area, then you would have a new connective tissue attachment resulting in regeneration. So this is the ideal healing pattern which we would require. So based on this, what is the aim of regenerative periodontal surgery is that it is not only to eliminate the pocket depth but also to regenerate a new attachment apparatus and to reconstruct the periodontal unit to within previously existing normal physiologic limits. For example, here you can see a condition where the periodontal ligament has formed the remaining part of the area or the healed area, resulting in a new connective tissue attachment. So this is the ideal regenerative therapy aim that we would require. So coming on to the classification of regenerative therapy, so it has been divided into graft associated and non-graft associated. Graft associated, it is by using bone graft materials, so you can see the bone graft materials here. Non-graft associated is by means of root biomodification with citric acid or tetracycline, or guided tissue regeneration with the help of membranes, or biologic mediators with the help of PRP and PRF. So today in this class we will be dealing about graft associated. In the next class we will be dealing about non-graft associated. So generally bone graft materials are evaluated based on three main properties, whether they are osteogenic, osteoinductive or osteoconductive. Osteogenesis, as the term goes, osteogenesis, it is the formation or the development of the new bone by the cells contained in the graft itself. So osteogenesis, that is formation of the new bone. The example for this is autografts. So autografts we will be dealing what it is in the later slides. Osteoinduction, it is a chemical process by which the molecules contained in the graft, which has bone morphogenetic proteins, convert the neighboring cells into osteoblasts, which in turn form the bone. So in other terms, osteoinduction is the bone around it has been induced and resulting in the bone formation. So that is osteoinduction. The example is allograft. Osteoconduction, it is a physical effect by which the matrix of the graft forms a scaffold that favors the outside cells to penetrate the graft and form a new bone. In other words, a scaffold is formed, that is just a bed is formed into which the cells come and penetrate, the outside cells come and penetrate, and then new bone is formed. So please be very aware of these terms. Osteogenesis is bone formation, so you can see here the bone is getting formed. Osteoinduction is the graft material induces the surrounding bone to convert into osteoblast, whereas osteoconduction, the material forms a scaffold, allowing the other cells, outside cells, to come and penetrate into the graft and form a new bone. So these are the three major graft properties. So based on this, the classification of the bone graft materials, wherein autografts or osteogenetic materials, the grafts which are harvested from the patient's own body. Allografts, these are osteoinductive materials where the grafts between the individuals of the same species are taken, but they are of non-identical genetic disposition, which means like we can take it from another human being, but they are not of same identical disposition. Xenografts osteoconductive, which means that the graft is from a different species, like for example from the animal to man, so that is xenografts. Alloplasts or synthetic grafts, so this is a synthetic bone graft material, a bone graft substitute, so this is more of a chemical component. So to remember, mainly all the grafts techniques requires a pre-surgical scaling, occlusal adjustment before going in for the procedure and for the exposure of the defect with full thickness flap. The flap technique best suited for the graft purposes is the papilla preservation flap because it provides complete coverage of the incidental area after suturing. If you are not able to go in for papilla preservation flap because of tight contacts, then you could go for the conventional flap procedure. But the best one is your papilla preservation flap. The use of antibiotics after the procedure is generally recommended. So we will go on with each of the bone grafts. So autografts is considered to be the gold standard among all the graft materials because it gives more predictable results and it contains live osteoblasts and osteoprogenitor cells, and this heals by osteogenesis. So which means that this particular graft or this particular bone graft has the ability to form bone by itself. So it has been classified based on the site of graft procurement and the form it is being procured. Site of graft procurement, it could be either from the extraoral or from the intraoral site. Form, it could be either block or a particulate form. So here we have a picture of an extraoral site, that is an iliac crust, an area from this has been taken, and here you have an intraoral site, especially your maxillary tuberosity region, and here you can see a block is being taken, so an entire chunk is being taken here. So when we crush the intraoral sites with the help of the raunchure, you get something, a particulate matter like this. So this is the different areas which are present. So block bone, the disadvantage is that it has a reduced osteogenetic activity and slow revascularization than the particulate bone marrow. Intraoral structures which are harvested intramembranous bone grafts may have minimal resorption, enhanced vascularization, and better incorporation at the donor site. So coming on to the donor sites of the autogenous bones, so generally extraoral and intraoral. Extraoral sites include a lot of them: iliac crust, tibia, fibula, and ribs. From these sites, bone can be taken. Whereas intraoral sites, you can take it from your chin, exostosis, torus, ramus, and tuberosity. So apart from this, if you want your graft material to be more of a cortical bone, then you have to select the area to be a mandible or the cranium region. If you want more of a cancellous bone, then your area should be maxillary tuberosity or inner cancellous part. So if you want both these bones, a combination of both these bones, then you can go for the iliac bone. But see to that maxilla, since it is having more amount of cancellous component, it has more vascularity, whereas mandible, it is more amount of cortical component, and therefore it is less vascular, and cortical bone perforation with burr is required for taking your or procuring your graft. So how do you procure a graft using a trephine burr? So this is a trephine burr which can be inserted into your aorta. So you can see the burr which is there. So this has an hollow effect, hollow channel inside, and with a cutting edge around it. So this, when inserted into a surface of bone area like this, tries to take away the chunk of bone outside. So once the bone is taken, and you can see how it is being presented in the Dapen dish. So this is more of a particulate form. So it is just like your burr which you're cutting through your teeth. Same way you're cutting through the bone, and that particle is being procured in this spaced area, and this could be used for your bone graft regeneration in other site. So same way you can take a block graft from your chin area. So this is a block graft how they have removed, and especially the chin area, the mentalis area is being suggested. So this is an Audis design wherein you have 5 gap from the apices of the teeth, 5 graft from the inferior border of mandible, 5 graft from the mental nerves on mental foramen on both the sides, giving an Audi design effect. So by this you can procure your graft from the chin area. Ramus graft, you can also take it from the ramus area. A block graft can be acquired, and the 4 osteotomy sites are given here. So the main advantage and disadvantage of autograft is that advantage is, as such, it is told that is a gold standard because it has osteogenic potential. Block graft that maintain form and shape is there, particulate compared to the particulate ones. It has the ability to correct any size or shape deformity, elimination of the possibility for immunogenic reaction. Whereas the main disadvantage is that there is a second surgical intervention which is required. Like for example, if we are going to do a procedure on 3/6 or for intrabony defect, we have to procure a material from the ramus or the macular tuberosity. So there is a second surgical intervention. Morbidity associated with the donor site is there. One major disadvantage is that there is unpredictable bone resorption when we are going to use autografts, longer recovery period, difficulty in managing soft tissue coverage, increased treatment time, and increased risks are there. So coming on to the critical success factors, it depends on the stability of the grafting materials, the condition of the recipient site. There should be no infection, resistance to resorption should be there, and soft tissue coverage should be good. So based on all this, then we could find success in this grafting procedure. So next, coming on to allograft, this is used in the treatment of the intrabony defect. So you can use your frozen cancellous iliac bone and marrow, cryopreserved bone from the head of the femur, freeze-dried allograft bone allograft, demineralized freeze-dried bone allograft. So in market we do have the freeze-dried bone allograft and the demineralized freeze-dried bone allograft. Here you can see the particulate material of the freeze-dried bone allograft. Next, coming on to decalcified freeze-dried bone allografts given by Erst in the year 1965. So what he did was he took a femur. So here you can see the femur. He decalcified it in zero point 0.6 neutral hydrogen chloride, washed it in sodium phosphate buffer, vacuum sealed to expose the bone-inducing agent without the bone morphogenetic protein. And these proteins are osteoinductive in nature, but the main disadvantage is that there could be a potential of disease transfer from this cadaver. So as I told you, this is an osteoinductive effect wherein when the bone graft is placed, after few days you could see that the bone cells are being induced to form bone. The surrounding cells are being induced to form bone. So the main advantage of the allograft is that it is readily available, elimination of the need for a patient donor site. So unlike the autografts, you need not have another second donor site here. Reduced anesthesia and surgical time, decreased blood loss and fever complication. But the disadvantage, since it is use of a tissue from another individual, there could be some rejection. Cadaveric bone may undergo some rejection. Disease transfer is a major concern. It is a tissue or a bone graft between members of different species, like for example, from the animal to the man. So two types of xenografts are available, taken from the bovine, that is your cow, and also from the natural coral. Of the substances taken from the cow, that is the bovine, anorganic bovine bone that has been chemically treated with ethylene diamine to remove all its organic components, leaving a trabecular and porous architecture similar to that of the human bone. It is osteoconductive in nature. Bow plant, it is a calf bone treated with by detergent extraction, sterilized in propiolactone and freeze dried. Keel bone, it is a calf or an ox bone denatured with hydrogen peroxide, dried with acetone and sterilized with ethylene oxide. Ospurane, it's a cow bone soaked in potassium hydroxide, acetone and salt solution. Boiled bone, it is a cow bone boiled or it's autoclave. So authors have tried all such things and found out that only few bone of the animals have been used. Alloplast materials, they are the synthetic inorganic inert materials. So according to the World Workshop 1996, they have found that this synthetic graft material primarily works as just defect fillers. So if there is a bony defect present, if you place these alloplasts, they just act as defect fillers rather than going in for any bone formation further. So the main characteristics is that it is biocompatible and bioactive. It is osteoconductive in nature, and in long run it is resorbable. It is classified basis of their ability to be resorbed as resorbable and non-resorbable. Resorbable includes ceramics, beta tricalcium, hydroxyapatite, calcium sulfate, and calcium carbonate. Non-resorbable includes porous hydroxyapatite, dense hydroxyapatite, and bioglass, which is a combination of calcium-coated polymer of hydroxyethyl methacrylate and polymethyl methacrylate. Coming on to the composition of all the components, bioceramics is composed of calcium phosphate with calcium and phosphate ratio similar to that of the bone. Beta tricalcium phosphate, the second one is a porous form of calcium phosphate. Hydroxyapatite, this is mostly used. Here we have it in the college where it is a porous non-resorbable one, and a solid non-resorbable or solid resorbable ones are also present in this form. There are two types, a non-resorbable calcium hydroxide coated with a copolymer of polymethyl methacrylate and polyhydroxyethyl methacrylate, which is a hard tissue replacement. Bioactive glass, so this we found to be a very interesting one, which is a combination of so many materials. So this bonds to the bone through the development of a surface layer of carbonated hydroxyapatite. So generally hydroxyapatite is similar to that of the bone, so those which has hydroxyapatite has been found to be a little good towards the bone regeneration. When exposed to the tissue fluids, bioactive glasses are covered by a double layer composed of a silica gel. So you can see the first layer is the silica gel. This is the component of graft. So the first layer of silica rich layer is formed, and after this you have a layer of calcium phosphate which is being formed. So this calcium phosphate rich layer promotes the adsorption and the concentration of the proteins utilized by the osteoblasts to form a mineralized extracellular matrix. Coming on to the patient selection, a high level of motivation, ability to remove the plaque effectively is required. Commitment to keeping the often lengthy and rigorous appointment necessary for periodontal maintenance is required. General health and emotional status, habits, particularly smoking, and the ability to tolerate lengthy dental appointments is required. So such patients are selected for the regenerative purpose. So again, defect selection. So supposing if it is a one wall defect as seen in the last class, generally going for resective surgery depending on the remaining bone availability. If it is a two wall defect, going for resective or regenerative surgery depending on the bone availability. If it is three wall or a furcation defect, definitely go for regenerative therapy with the bone graft materials as we have discussed before. You perform the plaque control occlusive therapy is done, and a pre-procedural rinse of with chlorhexidine is given for 30 seconds immediately prior to the surgery, which can reduce the intraoral bacteria. Regional anesthesia for the patient's comfort is given. Local anesthesia, infiltration with epinephrine to facilitate hemostasis. Coming under the flap thickness, so any intrabony defect you want to go for regeneration, always go for a full thickness flap. A three wall defect you can visualize in this area. A three wall defect is there on the distal side of the first molar. So full thickness flap has been reflected here. Defect or root debridement, ultrasonic and hand and rotary instruments. Remove all the hard and the soft deposit on any altered cementum with the help of either rotary or the hand instruments. Rotary instruments, if you're going to use a multi-fluted surgical length burr on a high-speed handpiece needed to gain access to the depth of the lesion and to plane the root surface. After which you're going to treat it with citric acid with a pH of 1. Graft management, the choice of graft material. So we have already spoken about such a lot of graft material. So this should be based on the clinical consideration, the treatment objectives, and the potential patient morbidity. If the morbidity with the graft procurement is a concern, an allograft or a demineralized freeze-dried bone graft material may be used. There are no major reports of disease transmission, graft rejection, or ankylosis after the use of demineralized freeze-dried bone graft material. Alloplast can also be used. So the root surface is being treated with the citric acid first. This is because we need to take away the smear layer which is formed above, and the defect is decorticated. After which you're going to place your bone graft material. So this is your bone graft material. So here we have placed a demineralized freeze-dried bone graft material with light incremental pressure so that the graft little overfills the defect. After which you need to cover this area back with the soft tissues. So generally a crustal incision, if you're not able to cover, your incisions should have been proper. So crustal incision with releasing incisions previously would have helped this issue. Lingual flap, if you want to raise, include at least 3 teeth lingually and raise up to the mylohyoid muscle. So when you're going to cover this suture, the soft tissue back, a tension-free suture, especially a mattress suture, can be given. But if you're not able to get a correct component of the soft tissue, you could go for graft procurement, soft tissue graft procurement from other area. For example, a free gingival graft, connective tissue graft, or a pedicle graft can be sorted out. So coming on to the flap closure, a monofilament suture is used to close the flaps by the primary closure. At the completion of the periodontal surgical procedure, clinicians may elect to cover the area with a periodontal dressing. So you have seen that a graft, it's being sutured with the help of a suture material, and if required, you can go for a periodontal dressing with the help of Copac. Postoperative management and periodontal maintenance. Postoperative antibiotics to aid in the plaque control is given, or to take away the residual left out infection is to done. Topical antimicrobial rinse is required. Postoperative visits include plaque removal, both mechanically and with topical chlorhexidine. Periodontal probing or recording of the attachment level should not be done prior to 6 to 12 months, since probing force may damage the healing site, thereby diminishing the regenerative outcome. So here is a preoperative image wherein you have a defect here. So this is the preoperative view of the patient. I think we have seen it. This was a particular patient which we saw in the previous slides. So this area has been regenerated with the help of bone graft. So you can see the regenerative effect here and the post after 6 months. So to come to a conclusion, bone grafts are materials used for the replacement or augmentation of the bone around the teeth. Biologic concept of using bone graft, osteoconduction, induction, and osteogenesis. The role of regenerative materials has become quite significant and has become an indispensable part of the periodontist kit. Future research needs to focus on the predictability of these materials and the long-term success of the periodontal therapy. Okay, thank you.